The hook brand struck Nerelle Ashryn's shoulder before the dragon court finished reading her sentence. Heat tore through the thin gray cloth of her servant dress. The iron did not simply burn. It searched. Its curved tip pressed beneath her skin as if hunting for something the court had already decided she did not possess. Fire. Nerelle hit one knee on the black marble. But she caught herself before her face could touch the floor. Above her, the dragon banners of Vaelth hung like dead wings. Around her, nobles in gold masks watched with the careful stillness of people who had paid to witness proof. Not proof of guilt, proof of emptiness. By ancient right, Lord Serix Morvayn declared, the brand shall reveal whether this servant carries dragon blood, stolen ember, or forbidden inheritance. Nerelle kept her teeth closed against the pain. She would not scream for them. The court had called her Fireless since childhood. In Vaelth, even furnace boys could spark coal from their fingertips. Noble daughters made little flames dance above wine cups for amusement. Nerelle could scrub ash until her hands split. She could carry hot stones through winter corridors. She could keep a dying kitchen bird alive beneath her palms. But she had never lit a wick. That made her useful tonight. Serix stood over her in robes the color of old coals. One gloved hand locked around the hook brand. He did not look angry. That was worse. He looked reverent, as if hurting her was not cruelty but law made clean. The brand should have answered quickly. Red for lawful dragon blood, black for none, white for stolen fire. Instead, it pulsed. Once. Small. Wrong. Almost like a second heartbeat trapped beneath the iron. Serix's eyes sharpened. On the obsidian throne, Dragon King Soren Vaelth leaned forward. He had not moved when the guards dragged her into the hall. He had not spoken when Serix named her Fireless before every noble house. His silence had weighed on her harder than the chain around her wrists. She had seen him only from the lower galleries before tonight. Storm, dark hair, a black gold crown, amber eyes colder than furnace glass. Men feared him because the royal dragon beneath the mountain answered only his blood. But now his face had changed. Not with surprise. With recognition. Nerelle saw it through the blur of pain, and her stomach tightened. The king knew something. He had known before the hook touched her skin. Serix saw the king move. His hand pressed harder. Not downward. Inward. The brand angled beneath Nerelle's collarbone, toward the pulse under her ribs. Pain ripped a sound from her throat, but she swallowed it before it became a scream. She would not give the court what it had gathered to hear. The brand pulsed again. This time, something beneath the throne pulsed back. Every torch along the left wall bent away from her. The court did not gasp. Vaelth nobles were trained better than that. But silence changed shape. Guards tightened their grips. Priests near the furnace doors lowered their eyes, not in prayer but in fear. Serix lifted his free hand. A bodily rejection of lawful proof, he said smoothly. Common among ash-born servants. The lie was too clean. Then Nerelle's shadow moved. It did not stretch with the torchlight. It thickened beneath her knees, gathering like spilled ink pulled by breath. Two vast shapes dragged themselves backward across the marble, slow and uneven, not like wings opening for flight, but like something chained too long remembering the shape of freedom. Pain tore through Nerelle's shoulder and down her ribs. The shadow was not separate from her. When it moved, her body paid. Soren rose from the throne. The hall obeyed before he spoke. Blades lowered. The furnace drums at the far end stopped one by one until only the pulse of the brand remained. "Remove the hook," Soren said. His voice was quiet. Serix did not obey. Soren descended the first black step of the dais. The embers in the wall sconces dimmed around him. "Keeper Morvayn," he said. "Remove it." Serix smiled without warmth. "Your Majesty ordered the proof." The words cut through Nerelle more cleanly than iron. She looked at Soren. He did not deny it. For a moment, the burn in her shoulder became smaller than the cold opening under her ribs. The king had ordered this. The man whose law could silence armies had chosen her body as the door truth would be dragged through. Soren's jaw tightened. "I ordered a shoulder mark." Serix's smile thinned. "I did not order a heartward hook." That word changed the room. Heartward. The priests near the furnace doors stepped back. Even the carved dragons along the pillars seemed to catch pale fire in their stone eyes. Nerelle understood then. Syrinx was not proving she was empty. He was trying to force whatever hid in her to wake inside the wrong place. Inside the body, near the heart. The shadow behind her convulsed. A black gold wing struck the marble. The sound cracked through the throne hall like thunder trapped underground. The furnace doors burst open without hands, spilling violent gold light across the floor. Beneath the throne, something answered again, deeper this time. Like a buried heart refusing to stay buried, Nerelle's shadow rose. It lifted from the marble as if the floor were dark water. A dragon's neck formed behind her, enormous and half-transparent, made of black flame threaded with gold veins. Its horns curled backward like burned branches. Its wings climbed toward the vaulted ceiling and tore the lowest banners from their hooks. Its eyes opened last. They were not red. They were Nerelle's gray, terrified, furious, alive. The dragon shadow lowered its head above her, not like a beast claiming prey, but like a wounded thing shielding the only body it had left. Soren stepped down again. The dragon shadow opened its jaws. Every sword in the hall melted halfway to the hilt. Soren stopped. Guilt crossed his face so sharply it looked like pain. His eyes went to her shoulder, then to the dark gold fire trembling around the edges of her shadow. "You survived outside the body," he whispered. Syrinx heard enough. Fear would have made him easier to defeat. He gave them law instead. From inside his robe, he drew a strip of black parchment, sealed with old gold wax. It unrolled by itself, covered in contracts written so small they looked like veins. "By Ember law," Syrinx said, "all dragonfire found outside the body belongs first to the crown until proven soulbound." The dragon shadow growled. Dust rained from the ceiling. Nerelle's shoulder burned. The dragon's pain answered hers. She understood one rule without being taught. If they chained the shadow, the chain would cut her too. Syrinx looked to the guards. "Bind it before it learns her name." Soren moved first. He seized the fallen hook brand from the marble with his bare hand. The iron should have burned him. It did worse. Black gold fire climbed his palm and sank under his skin. His body locked. The tendons in his wrist stood out like cords. For one terrible second, his knees almost bent. They did not touch the floor. For the first time that night, the king paid in pain instead of command. Syrinx's eyes flashed. "Your Majesty, that brand is evidence." "No," Soren said through clenched teeth. "It is a crime." The word landed between the throne and the altar like a blade. Nerelle wanted to believe him. She hated that some broken part of her did. Soren looked at her, not as a king looked at a servant, and not as a man looked at a weapon, but as someone facing damage he had helped create. "I will not ask your forgiveness," he said. Good, Nerelle thought, because she had none to give. Her legs shook as she forced herself upright. The dragon shadow lowered one wing around her, but its gaze stayed fixed on Syrinx. Beneath the throne, the buried pulse continued, answering her pain beat for beat. Syrinx's mouth curved. "If the shadow is yours, Fireless girl, command it." The old insult crossed the hall and died there. Nerelle looked at the parchment. She looked at the king's burned hand locked around the hook brand. Then she looked at Syrinx, who had angled the iron toward her heart and called it law. She could have told the dragon shadow to kill him. She almost did, but death would end the question too quickly. "No," she whispered. The dragon shadow stilled. "Nerelle Ashryn, do not kill him." Syrinx's smile sharpened. Certain he had found mercy. Nerelle's voice came out hoarse, but it carried to every furnace door. "Make the brand show who taught it to hunger." The hook brand twisted in Soren's burned hand. Then the black marble beneath the throne cracked open, and a child's shadow screamed from below. The child's shadow did not climb from beneath the throne. It reached for Nerelle's burned shoulder. Small fingers made of smoke, and old gold stretched through the crack in the black marble, trembling as if the stone itself had been holding them down for years. Nerelle stepped back on instinct, but her dragon shadow moved with her, one vast wing folding between the child and the guards. The movement tore pain through her shoulder. She swallowed it and stayed standing. The hook brand in Soren's hand began to cry. Not like iron. Not like fire. Like a child who had learned too young that no one would come. Soren's burned fingers tightened around the handle. Black gold flame crawled up his wrist, biting beneath his skin. He did not release it. His face had gone pale under the crown, but he kept the brand lifted where every noble house could see it. Syrinx recovered first. He always did. Fear crossed his face for less than a breath before Law covered it. "Seal the breach," he ordered. "That shadow is crown property." Nerelle turned her head slowly. The words did not strike the dragon. They struck her. The child's shadow flinched. A small brand glowed on its shoulder, shaped exactly like Nerelle's. A curved hook aimed inward, not down. The mark pulsed once. Nerelle's own burn answered, and her knees nearly weakened. It had happened before. Not to her. To children. "Do not touch it," Nerelle said. Her voice was not loud. But the dragon shadow's growl carried it farther than any shout. The guards froze with their sealing chains half raised. Syrinx's eyes narrowed. "You have no standing to command this court." "No," Nerelle said, her throat rough from smoke and pain. "But it reached for me." The child's shadow pulled itself higher from the crack. It had no face, only the shape of one. A small head, narrow shoulders. One hand pressed to the branded place as if the pain had never ended. Behind it, more darkness stirred beneath the throne. But none rose yet. They waited behind the first childlike names waiting behind a closed mouth. Soren looked at the crack beneath his throne. For the first time, Nerelle saw fear in him. Not fear of the shadow dragon. Not fear for his life. Fear of what his crown had been sitting on. Syrinx lifted the black parchment. "Ember law is clear. Outside, body dragon fire, if unsoulbound, belongs to the throne. The shadow below has no body. Therefore, it has no claim." Nerelle's dragon shadow lowered its head until its burning gray eyes were level with the High Keeper. Nerelle held up one shaking hand before it could strike. "No." The dragon stopped. Soren's gaze cut to her, sharp with surprise. Nerelle did not look at him. She looked at the child's shadow. Did the child have a name? The hook brand screamed. Every furnace door in the hall slammed open at once. Gold fire did not pour out this time. Ash did. Thick, pale ash rolled across the black marble. And inside it, names appeared for only a heartbeat before burning away. Marae, Ilvin, Sarith, Orun, Lusa. Dozens more followed. Some were so small they looked unfinished. Some had servant marks beside them. Some had no family name at all. Fireless, Fireless, Fireless. The word had been written after each name like a grave dug in ink. Nerelle's stomach turned. They were not fireless. The child's shadow shook its head. The hook brand spoke in that small, broken voice. Hunted outside. Silence collapsed around the words. Nerelle understood too much at once. The brand had not been made to find fire and blood. It had been made to hunt the fire that survived elsewhere. Shadows. Reflections. The places a body hid what would kill it if awakened inside flesh. Syrinx snapped the parchment shut. "A forbidden interpretation." "A true one," Soren said. The brand punished him for the words. Fire sank deeper into his hand, opening black cracks along his palm. He exhaled once through his teeth but did not drop it. Syrinx turned on him. "Careful, Majesty. If you call the right criminal, you call the throne criminal. These furnaces have warmed your palace for generations. The mountain dragon has slept because stored shadow fire fed the deep vaults. Your line benefited from every lawful collection. The accusation struck clean." Nerelle looked at Soren. This time, she wanted him to deny it. He could not. "I did not know the names," he said. The answer was honest. It still did not open the door. Nerelle's face hardened. "Then learn them." Soren met her eyes. No defense came. No royal explanation. No soft plea for trust. He stepped toward the cracked throne floor and turned the hook brand inward, pressing its smoking curve against the signet ring on his own hand. Syrinx went still. "Your Majesty," he said, suddenly colder. "That is not required." Soren's mouth tightened. That is why I will do it. The brand bit into the royal ring. The throne answered violently. A line of gold fire shot from Soren's hand into the floor. It raced up the steps of the dais and split the black marble beneath the obsidian throne. The dragon carved into the royal seat opened one stone eye. Then the brand began reading the crown line. Names burned across the air above Soren's hand. Kings, regents, keepers, war priests, men with crowns, men who wrote laws beside crowned men. The list moved too fast for Nerelle to catch all of it. But the child's shadow watched every name with terrible stillness. Soren did not look away. The brand climbed from his hand to his forearm, drawing a thin line of black gold fire beneath his skin. His breath broke once. He stayed on his feet. Nerelle wanted to feel satisfied. She did not. Pain did not repay pain. It only proved the king could endure what servants had never been allowed to refuse. Stop, Syrinx commanded. The right will damage the crown authority. Soren's laugh was brief and empty. Good. The court heard that. So did the throne. The child's shadow lifted its branded arm. The burning names stopped. One final name remained above the hook brand. Larger than the rest. Older than Syrinx. Older than Soren's rule. The letters formed slowly, as if dragged from a locked grave. King Vaelth, Soren's father. The child's shadow pointed at the name. Then, in a voice made of ash, it said, First owner. The throne spoke in Soren's father's voice and called the child's shadow mine. Soren did not move. King Vaelth had been dead for 7 years. His bones lay sealed beneath the mountain chapel, wrapped in dragon silk and funeral gold. Yet his voice came from below the obsidian throne as if death had only made him deeper, not gone. The child's shadow recoiled. Its smoky fingers dragged across the cracked marble, leaving gold scratches that looked almost like writing. Mine. The words stayed in the air after the voice faded. Nerelle felt her dragon shadow tighten around her. Its wing pressed closer to her back, and pain flared through the brand on her shoulder. The shadow dragon hated that voice. Not feared it. Hated it with a grief older than her own memory. Syrinx bowed his head toward the throne, not toward Soren. That told Nerelle which king the law still served. Recorded ownership remains valid after royal death, he said. The first claimant's rights pass to the crown unless renounced by full blood, full seal, and full consequence. Soren turned on him slowly. You knew his voice was still bound there. I knew the law was preserved. You knew, Soren said. The hook brand in his hand pulsed as if answering the accusation. Black gold fire climbed higher along his forearm. Still, he did not drop it. Nerelle looked at the child's shadow again. It had no eyes, but she felt its attention on her. Not begging. Waiting. That was worse. Waiting asked whether she would become another witness who looked away. She stepped closer to the cracked throne floor. Soren's head snapped toward her. Nerelle. The sound of her name in his mouth should have meant something. It did not. Not yet. Syrinx lifted the black parchment. Servant. One more step and your shadow will be seized as an interfering flame. Nerelle stopped because her dragon shadow shuddered behind her, and the pain went through her body like a chain pulled tight. So that was the rule. The parchment did not need to touch the dragon. It only needed the right words. Nerelle breathed through the burn and looked at the hook brand. Show what the first owner bought. The hall darkened. Syrinx's face hardened. That question is outside your standing. She asked the brand, Soren said. Not you. Syrinx turned sharply. And you are holding it, Majesty. Every answer it gives will pass through your blood. Soren looked at Nerelle. If he let the brand answer, it would not only expose his father, it would wound him for truth he had inherited. He closed his burned hand tighter, then let it pass. The hook brand opened. Not with metal, with memory. Gold fire spilled from its curve and struck the cracked floor. The marble became a document larger than the hall. Lines of old script burned across it, sealing and unsealing themselves with each beat of the throne below. A scene formed inside the fire. A boy stood where Nerelle knelt now, small and thin, wearing a servant tunic too large for his shoulders. His hands were bound in front of him. Men in old royal armor held him still while a younger King Arvath stood beside the throne with the hook brand. The boy did not burn. His shadow did. It writhed behind him in the shape of a young dragon, half-formed, frightened, trying to curl around the child's ankles. Arvath pressed the hook brand not down, but inward, just as Syrinx had done to Nerelle. The boy screamed without sound. His shadow tore from the floor. A contract appeared above him. Outside body dragon fire, unsoulbound by recognized blood. Transferred into crown custody for protection of realm and throne. Nerelle's stomach turned cold. Not killed. Worse, in a way the law could smile at. Owned. The memory shifted. More children appeared. Some older. Some barely tall enough to reach the altar stone. Each called Fireless. Each shadow, answering where the body could not. Each contract sealed before the child could speak a name the court would recognize. Nerelle's dragon shadow made a sound so low the banners trembled. Syrinx raised the parchment at once. By preserved authority, all unregistered outside body fire present in this hall shall submit to crown custody until soul-bound status is proven. The words struck Nerelle's shadow. Pain sliced across her shoulder. Her dragon shadow's wing jerked open, resisting. Gold chains of script crawled from the parchment into the air, aiming for the dragon's throat. Soren stepped between them. The chains wrapped around his chest instead. The court floor cracked beneath his boots. He dropped to one knee, not from weakness, but because the throne dragged him down through the bloodline Syrinx had invoked. The crown on his head darkened at the edges. Syrinx's eyes glittered. If you shield her shadow, you affirm the crown's claim over it. Nerelle stared at Soren, breath caught in her throat. There it was. The false choice. If he protected her, the law used him as owner. If he stepped aside, the law chained her shadow. Syrinx had built a cage from help itself. Soren's hand closed around the script across his chest. I renounce inherited claim. The throne shook. Syrinx went pale. You cannot renounce crown property in open court without weakening throne authority. I know. Your armies are sworn through that authority. I know. The mountain dragon sleeps beneath that authority. Soren's amber eyes lifted to Nerelle. No apology. No plea. Only consequence. I know. He tore the chain. The sound was not metal breaking. It was law screaming. The obsidian throne cracked from base to crown. One stone dragon eye burst into gold dust. Across Soren's brow, the black gold crown split just enough to draw a line of blood at his temple. The script chains around Nerelle's dragon shadow shattered before they could close. Nerelle expected relief. Instead, the hook brand turned toward her. Its curve glowed white for the first time. Syrinx saw it and stepped back. No, he whispered. That was the first honest sound he had made all night. The child's shadow crawled to Nerelle's feet and pressed its branded shoulder to the hem of her dress. Her dragon shadow lowered its massive head until its gray eyes met the brand. The white glow spread across the iron. Then words appeared. Not in the crown line, not in Syrinx's parchment, but along the living edge of Nerelle's shadow. Soulbound status hidden by order of King Soren Vaelth. The hall went still around the burning sentence. Syrinx clutched the parchment to his chest. Impossible. No servant shadow can carry a soulbound name without a registered body. The hook brand answered by turning in Soren's hand toward Nerelle. Her dragon shadow spread its wings, and in a voice that was not the child's, not the throne's, and not the king's, it spoke the first hidden name, Nerelle Ashryn. The child shadow bowed before her name and began to cry gold. The court did not fear Nerelle's shadow dragon until it spoke her true name, Nerelle Ashryn. The name moved through the hall without wind. It passed over broken marble, melted swords, open furnace doors, and the cracked obsidian throne. Where it touched the ash on the floor, gold lines flickered and vanished like old vows trying to remember their shape. The child shadow bowed before her name and began to cry gold. Nerelle stared down at it. The tears did not fall like water. They struck the marble as tiny sparks and became letters for half a heartbeat before fading. Not royal letters, not crown script, something older, sharper, written in curves that made her dragon shadow lower its head in grief. Syrinx moved before the last echo died. He slapped one palm against the black parchment. Extinct name, he declared. Treason name. Erased inheritance. The parchment snapped open so hard the air cut around it. Lines of old gold script lashed outward, not toward the child this time, but toward Nerelle's shadow dragon. The words shifted as they flew, changing from soul-bound status hidden into illegal concealed inheritance. Nerelle's shoulder burned. Her dragon shadow recoiled, and the pain hit her ribs like a blade pulled sideways. She almost fell. Soren reached toward her, then stopped himself before touching her without permission. That restraint hurt in a different way. Sarek saw it. His mouth tightened with triumph. If she is Vaelthrin, she is not a servant. She is a threat to the Vaelth throne. Her shadow is not protected evidence. It is hostile inheritance. Soren's broken crown darkened at the split. Vaelthrin is not a throne claim, he said. Sarek turned on him. It is worse. It is the bloodline your father buried, because it stood before crowns and judged them. The words struck the hall harder than any accusation before it. Nerelle lifted her head. Judge them. Her dragon shadow's wings flexed. The child shadow at her feet cried harder, the gold tears forming one broken phrase again and again. Name denied. Name denied. Name denied. Nerelle's breath shook, but her voice did not. Who denied it? Sarek raised the parchment higher. No more questions. Soren stepped forward, the hook brand still burning in his hand. His palm was blackened now, the fire under his skin crawling up to his elbow. He did not command Nerelle. He did not tell her what truth she could bear. He looked at her and asked, "What do you want the brand to show next?" The question changed something, not in the court. In Hea, all her life, men with clean hands had told Nerelle what she was. Fireless, useful, empty, safe to hurt. Now the most powerful man in Vaerthorn, broken crown bleeding against his temple, stood before her with the instrument of her pain and waited for her choice. It did not forgive him, but it gave her the knife handle. Nerelle looked at the child shadow. Did they deny your name too? The child nodded once. The gold tears gathered at its feet and shaped a small word. Ylvin. The name trembled like a candle in winter. Nerelle knelt despite the pain. Her dragon shadow bent with her, shielding her from the script still circling in the air. She did not touch the child shadow. She did not know if touch would hurt it. Instead, she placed her burned hand on the marble beside its smoky fingers. I see you, Ylvin. The child shadow collapsed forward, as if those 4 words had carried more mercy than the kingdom had given in all its years. Sarek's parchment screamed. The illegal concealed inheritance script snapped tighter around Nerelle's shadow dragon's throat. Nerelle gasped as pressure closed around her own neck. Soren moved, but she lifted one hand. No, he froze. Not because he agreed, because she had commanded. Nerelle forced breath through the invisible pressure and looked at the hook brand. Show why my name was buried. The brand obeyed. White fire flashed across the hall. Not crown gold, not furnace gold. White, clean, and merciless. It tore through Sarek's altered script and opened a memory above the throne. King Arvath stood younger and crueler beneath the mountain roof. Before him knelt 3 adults in dark robes edged with black gold thread. Their shadows did not crouch beneath them. They stood behind them as dragons, silent and watchful. Vaelthrin. Nerelle knew it without being told. Arvath held the hook brand, but he did not dare press it to them. The crown cannot own what is soul-bound, one Vaelthrin woman said. Her voice moved through Nerelle's bones. Then I will erase the witnesses. Arvath answered. The memory shifted. Ledgers burned. Birth names were scraped from stone. Children with outside body fire were relabeled fireless before their shadows could speak. The hook brand did not simply take. It translated theft into law. It turned a soul's companion into crown property by hiding the name that proved the bond. Nerelle's stomach clenched. This was why Arvath had buried Vaelthrin. Not because they wanted the throne. Because their shadows could stand before a king and say no. Sarek thrust the parchment toward the memory. False witness. Unregistered memory. A servant cannot carry pre-crown authority. Ylvin's child shadow lifted its branded arm. She has the name we were denied. The sentence cracked Serex's parchment from corner to corner. Nerelle's dragon shadow rose to its full height. The pressure left her throat. Air rushed back into her lungs, sharp and painful. Soren staggered as the hook brand pulled another line of fire from his blood, but he kept it raised so the memory could finish. The Vaelthrin woman in the vision turned. For a moment, Nerelle thought the memory looked directly at her. Then the woman's shadow dragon lowered its head and spoke through the white fire. The first oath stands before the first crown. Serex backed away. No. The broken throne answered with Arvith's buried voice, furious and deep. Mine. Nerelle's shadow dragon turned from the throne to her. Not waiting for Soren. Not waiting for law. Waiting for her. Nerelle stood, shaking, burned, no longer able to pretend she was only the girl they had dragged from the ash kitchens. Say it, she whispered. Her dragon shadow spread its wings until black gold fire filled the throne hall, and it named the first Vaelthrin oath. No crown may own a soul. Every ownership contract in the hall split at once. Gold script burst from Serex's parchment like a swarm of burning insects. The words did not vanish. They fought. Lines of crown law snapped open, rewrote themselves, then clawed back toward Nerelle's dragon shadow as if the oath had wounded them but not killed them. Serex caught the parchment against his chest with both hands. Do you hear it? He shouted. The floor answered before anyone could. Beneath the throne, child shadows cried out in dozens of broken voices. Not one scream. Many. Some young, some older, some too faint to sound human anymore. The cracks in the marble widened, and gold light flickered below them like a city of sealed names burning under glass. Nerelle. Her dragon shadow spread its wings to shield the crack, but pain tore through her shoulder so fiercely her vision blurred. The oath had freed something. It had also disturbed every chain built on top of it. Serex saw the weakness and struck. Listen well, Dragon Court, he said, voice sharp with victory. If no crown may own a soul, then every custody contract beneath this throne is void. Soren's eyes narrowed. Good. No, Serex said. Not good. Void law does not heal what law has held together for generations. It releases claim without restoring body. It breaks custody without returning name. Those shadows below will scatter before they can be witnessed. Some will tear apart. Some will attach to the nearest living flame. Some will devour the bodies of servants who share their wounds. Nerelle's breath caught. Ilvin's child shadow pressed closer to her dress. Serex lowered his voice. Break the law too quickly, and you do not save them. You orphan them a second time. The words were poison because they made sense. Nerelle hated him for that. Her dragon shadow growled. But she lifted one hand. It stopped. She could feel its anger like fire behind her ribs, desperate to tear Serex apart. But if he was right, rage would make a grave of the hall. Soren turned to Nerelle. Do not let him use fear as law. He is using law as a knife, she said. That does not mean the knife is not sharp. For a moment, something like respect moved across Soren's face. Pain followed it. The hook brand still burned in his hand, and the split crown bled slowly at his temple. Nerelle looked down at Ilvin. What happens if the contracts break? The child shadow lifted its branded shoulder. Gold tears fell onto the marble and formed 3 words. No names. No door. Nerelle understood. A soul could not return if no one knew where it belonged. Serex smiled thinly. At last, the servant learns caution. Nerelle looked at him. No. I learned the cost. She stepped toward the crack. Soren moved instantly. Nerelle. This time his voice was not command. It was fear. She did not turn. If I am Vaelthrin, and Vaelthrin stood before crowns as witness, then the oath is not enough. A witness has to name what was denied. Serex's smile vanished. A witness must be registered. Ilvin's child shadow shook its head. Nerelle spoke before Serex could twist the rule again. Then register the first denied name through me. The hall went cold. Her dragon shadow recoiled. Not from fear. From cost. Pain flashed across Nerelle's shoulder, down her spine, into places deeper than bone. She understood the warning without words. If she became the bridge, the denied names would pass through her living shadow first. Each one would hurt. Each one could take something. Memory, breath, years, fire. Soren understood enough. No. Nerelle turned at last. You asked what I wanted the brand to show. Do not take the choice back when the answer hurts. His jaw clenched. There was the old king in him for half a heartbeat, the man born to command danger away from what he wanted to protect. Then he crushed it. What do you need? He asked. Not permission. Support. Nerelle looked at the hook brand in his hand. A royal seal has to stop claiming them long enough for their names to pass. Sarek stepped back. Impossible. The crown cannot suspend custody without surrendering authority over the vault. Soren looked at the cracked throne, then at the crown blood running down his face, then let it surrender. Sarek went still. Your Majesty. Soren raised his burned hand and pressed the hook brand against the split in his crown. The throne roared, not like stone, like a dragon disturbed beneath a mountain. Black gold fire raced from the crown into Soren's skull. His body locked so hard the veins in his neck stood out. The royal banners above the dais ignited at their edges. Far below the hall, something enormous shifted in sleep. Nerelle felt the movement through her shadow. The mountain dragon, not waking fully. Listening. Soren's knees struck the marble. He still held the brand to the crown. The crown releases custody for witness, he forced out. Sarek's parchment blackened at the edges. No, Sarex whispered. You are weakening the throne in front of enemies. Soren's laugh was raw. The throne made enemies of children. Nerelle did not forgive him. But she believed that sentence. Ilvin's child shadow lifted its head. The cracks beneath the throne widened, and one by one, shadows rose not fully, not free, but enough for their branded shoulders to show. Each waited behind Ilvin like a line of silent candles. Nerelle knelt at the edge of the broken marble. Her dragon shadow lowered around her until its wings formed a black gold arch. She placed her burned hand against the floor. I will witness, she said. The first name hit her like fire through the heart. Ilvin. Not just a sound. A life. A boy who had hidden crumbs for smaller children. A boy who had believed the dragon in his shadow was a friend. A boy who had died unnamed beneath a king who called him property. Nerelle screamed once. Her dragon shadow screamed with her. Gold letters carved themselves into the marble. Ilvin's soul denied. Not owned. The child shadow became brighter. Not whole, but seen. Sarex's face twisted. He thrust his cracked parchment into the air. Then I invoke the orphan clause. The rising shadows froze. Soren's head lifted, blood running from beneath his broken crown. Sarex's voice turned cold and ceremonial. If a Vaelthrin witness bears no registered body line, her testimony is void, and every soul she touches becomes evidence against her. Nerelle's dragon shadow went rigid. Ilvin clutched her dress. Sarex smiled. Show us where the witness body was buried. The floor beneath Nerelle opened. The floor beneath Nerelle opened around her knees. Black marble folded away in 4 sharp pieces, not breaking downward, but arranging itself like a legal document deciding where her body belonged. Gold script ran along the edges of the opening, every letter cut into the stone with a sound like teeth scraping bone. Ilvin clutched the hem of her dress. Nerelle's dragon shadow dropped one wing under her before she could fall. Pain burst through her shoulder as its wing became her bridge, holding her above the darkness. She tasted smoke and iron. The shadow could carry her, but every second cost it something from her living body. Sarex lifted the cracked parchment higher. Orphan clause, he said. A witness without registered body line cannot testify against crown custody. Any soul she names becomes attached to her unlawful inheritance until her own body line is found. The gold letters around the opening changed. Witness body required. Nerelle looked down. The dark beneath the floor was not a pit. It was a corridor made of sealed records, each one pressed into the air like black glass. Some held names. Some held blank spaces where names had been burned away. At the center, far below, a pale shape waited beneath a sheet of ash. A body. Not hers. Not exactly. Her breath stopped. Soren stepped toward the opening, but the throne seized him through the broken crown. Gold script snapped around his legs, binding him to the cracked dais. Sarex's smile returned. If the king leaves the throne while crown custody is suspended, the mountain seal fails. If he stays, the witness falls. There was the blade again. A choice shaped like law. Soren strained against the script. Blood slid down from the split in his crown to the corner of his eye. Release me. The law already has, Syrinx said. It released you to consequence. Nerelle gripped the edge of the opening. Her fingers slipped on hot marble. Her dragon shadow trembled beneath her weight. Ilvin's child shadow tried to pull her dress upward, but its smoky hands passed through the cloth whenever panic made it too thin. Nerelle, Soren said. She heard the command he did not speak. Let me save you. She refused it before it could become another chain. No, she said. If the clause wants my body line, then we make it show who buried it. Syrinx's eyes narrowed. You cannot question a clause while standing inside it. Nerelle looked at the hook brand still fused to Soren's burned hand. Then ask it through the crown. Soren understood. So did Syrinx. No, the High Keeper snapped. Soren pressed his bleeding crown harder against the brand. The pain took him visibly. His shoulders locked. Black gold fire crawled beneath his skin and climbed the side of his neck. For a moment, the royal dragon carved into the throne opened its remaining stone eye and stared down at him like judgment given shape. Soren did not look away. Show who buried the witness body line, he said. The orphan clause resisted. Gold script lashed from the floor opening and wrapped around Soren's throat. Nerelle felt it strike him through her shadow, not as pain in her own body, but as pressure around the room itself. The law was trying to silence the king before the question could finish. Soren's voice broke once. He forced the last word out anyway. Now, the records below opened. The pale shape beneath the ash rose just enough for Nerelle to see it was not a corpse in the simple sense. It was a body line. A bundle of proof made from hair, blood, birth cloth, first breath, and shadow imprint. The old magic had taken every sign that a person belonged to a living line and sealed it away so the world could call her unregistered. Nerelle's stomach turned. All her life they had called her Fireless. Before that, they had made her legally no one. The first memory opened inside the corridor. A woman ran through the ash kitchens carrying a newborn wrapped in gray cloth. Her hair was dark, her face half hidden by smoke, but her shadow behind her was unmistakable. A dragon with one wing torn nearly in half. Nerelle's dragon shadow made a broken sound. The woman pressed the baby into the arms of an old kitchen matron. Do not let them register her, the woman whispered. If the crown sees the name, it will own the shadow before she can speak. The matron trembled. Without a body line, she will be nothing. She will be alive. Nerelle's fingers went numb. Alive. Not protected. Not cherished. Alive. The memory shifted. The matron knelt before Syrinx years younger. His beard still dark with only threads of silver. He held a blank servant ledger open in one hand. The child's origin? He asked. The matron lowered her eyes. Ashborn. No claim. No fire. Syrinx dipped his quill. The ink did not write Nerelle's name. It erased the space where a name should have been. Nerelle's body shook so hard her shadow wing dipped beneath her. She nearly slid into the opening. Soren tore one hand free from the script binding his legs. The movement cracked the dais beneath him and sent blood down his wrist. He did not reach for her. He slammed his hand onto the throne. Anchor the witness. The crown split wider. A strip of black gold metal tore from it and drove itself into the marble beside Nerelle's hand. The anchor caught her dragon shadow before it collapsed. But the price struck Soren. The royal banners above him went dark, one by one, as if his authority were being extinguished in public. Syrinx's face sharpened with satisfaction. You spend crown power as if love will rebuild it. Soren's eyes stayed on Nerelle. This is not love. The words struck her strangely. Then he finished, voice rough. It is debt. Nerelle's throat tightened. Debt was not forgiveness, but it was closer to truth than protection had been. She looked back into the memory. Who gave the order? The hook brand turned white hot. Syrinx took one step back. The memory shifted again, deeper. King Arvath stood at the edge of the ash kitchens with Syrinx beside him. Between them stood the woman with the torn-winged dragon shadow. chained but unbowed. Arvath looked down at the gray-wrapped child. "Erase the body line," he ordered. "Leave the girl breathing. A nameless Vaelthrin cannot judge a crown." The woman spat blood at his feet. "My daughter will judge what I cannot." Nerelle stopped breathing. "Daughter." The word split something open inside her that no brand had touched. The woman turned her face through the memory, and this time Nerelle saw her eyes. Gray, terrified, furious, alive. Serex's parchment trembled. Nerelle lifted her head from the opening and looked at him. "You buried my body line." Serex's mouth tightened. "I preserved the realm." Ilvin's child shadow hissed. Soren's voice was low. "Name the mother." Serex smiled then, small and cruel. "Gladly." The memory below the floor bent toward Nerelle. The woman's shadow dragon raised its torn wing, and the hook brand spoke the buried name. "Merith Vaelthrin." Nerelle's dragon shadow froze. Beneath the floor, the ash-covered bodyline opened its eyes. The eyes inside the ash were Nerelle's. Not exactly hers. Older. Sharper. Hollowed by a grief Nerelle had not lived but somehow recognized. The ash-covered bodyline blinked once beneath the opened floor, and every sealed record in the corridor below shuddered as if a buried witness had finally drawn breath. Merith Vaelthrin did not rise. She could not. What waited below was not a living woman. It was proof shaped like a body. Blood memory, first breath, shadow imprint, birth cloth, and the last legal fragment of a mother the crown had tried to make impossible. Nerelle's dragon shadow trembled beneath her. The bodyline looked up through the ash and moved its mouth. No sound came. Serex smiled. "You see," he said. "No living body, no registered witness. Only treason residue, hidden beneath crown stone." The gold letters around the opening changed again. "Treason line detected." Nerelle's shoulder burned so hard she nearly lost her grip on the marble. The law was changing its teeth. It had failed to call her unowned, failed to call her illegal inheritance, failed to erase the oath, so now it called her treason. Ilvin's child shadow clung to her dress. "Name," it whispered. Nerelle looked down at Merith's silent mouth. Her mother was trying to speak. Serex lifted the parchment. "By orphan clause and treason blood addendum, any denied soul witnessed by a treason line becomes weaponized evidence against the crown. The child shadow Ilvin is no longer a victim. It is her attempted army." The rising child shadows recoiled. Nerelle felt their terror through the floor. Not fear of her. Fear of being used again. Even their rescue could be rewritten into crime. Soren tore another strip of script from his legs, but the throne dragged him lower. The black gold crown had split across his brow, and with every movement, more authority bled out of it in thin threads of light. "Serex," he said, voice low. "You will not turn children into charges against her." "I do not turn anything," Serex replied. "I read what the law already knows." "No," Nerelle said. Her voice cut through the gold script. Serex turned toward her. She pulled herself higher on the edge of the opening. Her dragon shadow groaned beneath the strain, but she did not let herself fall. "You do not read law. You choose which wound to name." For the first time, Serex's expression flickered. Nerelle looked at the bodyline below. "Merith Vaelthrin," she said, and the name hurt coming out of her mouth. "If you cannot speak, show me what he made your silence mean." The bodyline's eyes filled with white fire. The corridor below opened another memory. Merith stood chained before Arvath and Serex, but her torn-winged dragon shadow stood behind her, larger than any guard dared approach. A newborn cried in the kitchen matron's arms. Arvath held the hook brand. Serex held a contract still blank enough to become anything. "Call her treason," Arvath said. Merith lifted her bleeding chin. "She has made no claim. She carries the line that can judge mine. She carries a soul-bound shadow." Merith answered. "That is not treason. That is life." Serex dipped his quill. "If the mother refuses crown registration, the child may be recorded as abandoned threat." Merith looked at him then, not at Arvath. "You will build a law that eats children, and call it protection." Serex's younger face did not flinch. "I will build a law that keeps the realm from kneeling to old blood." The memory snapped shut. Nerelle stared at him. There it was. Not faith. Not preservation. Fear. You were afraid of us, she said. Serex's hand tightened on the parchment. I was afraid of a bloodline that placed itself above kings. No. Nerelle's voice shook but did not break. You were afraid of a witness who could say the king was wrong. Her dragon shadow raised its head. The words landed. The gold script around the opening faltered. Soren looked at Nerelle as if the hall had shifted around her. Not because she had power, because she had aimed it. Serex saw the shift too. He struck before it could settle. If she speaks as witness, he called, then let her accept witness cost. The parchment split down the center. From its torn middle dropped a narrow strip of black law, old and sharp as a blade. Witness may clear one's soul at personal price. Only one. Nerelle understood the trap before anyone explained it. Ilvin looked up at her. Behind him, dozens of child shadows waited. Some reached toward her. Some hid their branded shoulders. If she chose one, the law would make the rest wait. If she refused, Serex would say she had no standing. If she tried to take all of them, the cost might destroy her before she saved even one. Serex's voice softened. Choose carefully, Vaelthrin. The cruelty was not in making her choose. It was in making the children watch. Soren reached for the crown at his head. Serex's eyes widened. Do not. Soren broke the front seal from his crown. The throne shook so violently the opened floor cracked wider. Soldiers stumbled. The mountain far below gave a low answering rumble, like something ancient turning in sleep. Soren held the broken crown seal out toward Nerelle. Not to place it on her. Not to claim her. To give her a tool. The law demands one witness price, he said. Blood ran down his face. Use mine first. Nerelle stared at the seal. If she took it, the cost would pass through him. Not all of it. The brand had already taught her that pain never vanished. It only found a body willing to hold part of it. You do not get to buy forgiveness, she said. I know. You do not get to make my choice noble by bleeding beside it. I know. She hated that he answered correctly. Then Ilvin whispered, door. The gold tears at his feet shaped the same word. No names. No door. Nerelle took the crown seal. Soren's breath broke as the metal left his hand. Power shifted. Not to her as queen. Not to her as bride. Not to her as weapon. To her as witness. Nerelle pressed the broken seal to the marble beside Ilvin's name. I choose the first door, she said. Not the last. The body line below opened its mouth again. This time Marith's voice came through the floor, faint but clear. Then ask who locked it. Serex went white. Nerelle turned to the hook brand. Show the keeper of the first door. The brand burned white. The floor beneath Serex's feet split open, and from below rose a key made of child-bone gold, hanging from the chain around his neck. The key made of child-bone gold rose from beneath Serex's feet and pulled the chain tight around his throat. Serex grabbed it too late. The chain burned through his glove, and for the first time, the High Keeper made a sound that was not law, not command, not ceremony. It was pain. Small, sharp, human. The key hung against his chest, thin and pale gold, carved from something that should never have been made into an object. Tiny names ran along its teeth. Most were too small to read. One glowed brighter than the rest. Ilvin. The child shadow at Nerelle's side went still. That is the first door, Marith's voice whispered from the open floor. Nerelle felt the words through the crown seal in her hand. It had gone hot, feeding Soren's pain into the space between her fingers. The seal was not hers. It was not mercy. It was a borrowed cost, and every breath he took behind her sounded thinner than the last. Soren saw the key. His eyes changed. He tore against the throne script with sudden violence, and the cracked dais split under him. Serex. The name sounded like execution. Serex clutched the keychain and smiled through clenched teeth. Kill me, Majesty. And the first door locks forever. Soren stopped. Nerelle's dragon shadow lowered its head, black gold fire gathering in its jaws. It wanted the same thing Soren wanted. One bite. One ending. One less cruel man in the world. Nerelle lifted her hand. No. The dragon shadow froze. Soren looked at her, fury barely held behind his eyes. He wears a child's key around his neck. I know. He made it. I know. Then let me end him. Nerelle looked at Ilvin. The child shadow had not moved. Its smoky fingers were pressed to its branded shoulder, but its attention was fixed on the key, like a starving child staring at a locked pantry. If he dies with the door closed, Nerelle said, Ilvin stays a keyhole forever. The words struck Soren harder than refusal. He lowered the hand that had been reaching for his sword. Syrinx breathed once, then used that breath to strike again. The witness begins to understand structure, he said. Every denied soul was given a door. Every door was given a key. Every key was placed under lawful keeping. Without the keeper, release becomes rupture. Nerelle's stomach turned. You made children into locked rooms. I prevented old blood from assembling an army of shadows. They were children. They were potential judgment, Syrinx snapped. And judgment without hierarchy is rebellion wearing innocence. The key flared. Ilvin cried out and folded toward the floor. Nerelle dropped beside him. Her dragon shadow curved around them, and the pain through her shoulder nearly blinded her. She pressed the broken crown seal to the marble beside Ilvin's name. I am here, she said. Ilvin's gold tears struck the seal. The first door appeared. It was not a door of wood or iron. It formed in the air between Nerelle and Syrinx, narrow and black, with a small dragon scratched into its surface by trembling fingers. Behind it came the sound of a child breathing in the dark. Nerelle reached toward it. Syrinx jerked the keychain backward. The door slammed shut. Ilvin screamed without sound. Nerelle's shadow dragon roared, and the hall shook. The mountain below answered with a deeper rumble. Dust fell from the cracked throne. Soren's head turned slightly, listening to something only his blood could hear. The mountain dragon is waking, Syrinx said. Another consequence, Majesty. Break too many seals, and your kingdom burns beneath its own guardian. Soren's face hardened, but he did not deny it. Nerelle heard the truth in the silence. Syrinx had built every path with a punishment at the end. Free the children too quickly, and they scatter. Kill the keeper, and the doors lock. Break the crown, and the mountain dragon wakes. Let the law stand, and every soul remains property. There was no clean road, so Nerelle chose the dirty one that still moved forward. Give me the key, she said. Syrinx laughed once. You have no authority to take it. No, Nerelle said. But Ilvin has authority to call it. Syrinx's smile faltered. Nerelle turned to the child shadow. It has your name on it, not his. Can you call what carries your name? Ilvin trembled. The key trembled too. Syrinx seized the chain with both hands. He has no body. He has a name, Nerelle said. Ilvin lifted one smoky hand. The key pulled away from Syrinx's chest. The chain cut into his neck. Gold fire smoked against his skin. He snarled and thrust the black parchment forward with his free hand. If the denied soul claims the key, the witness must bear the lock. The first door's black surface shifted. A matching keyhole opened over Nerelle's burned shoulder. Pain tore through her. Her dragon shadow convulsed. The door was making her body the hinge. Soren lurched forward despite the throne script binding him. Put it on me. Syrinx's eyes flashed. A king cannot bear a denied child's lock. Then I renounce. No. Nerelle snapped. Soren stopped. She did not look away from Ilvin. You cannot renounce everything every time pain appears. His face changed. Not anger. Shame. Nerelle breathed through the keyhole burning into her shoulder. This cost is mine because I chose the door. Yours is to keep the crown from taking it back. Soren bowed his head once. Not deeply. Enough. What must I hold? He asked. The seal, Nerelle said. She placed the broken crown seal in his burned hand. The moment he took it, script crawled up his arm, locking him between crown and witness. He hissed through his teeth but held it steady. Nerelle turned to Ilvin. Call your key. Ilvin reached again. This time, the key tore free. The chain snapped from Syrinx's neck and flew across the hall, striking Nerelle's burned shoulder point first. She cried out. The first door opened. Light spilled through not gold, not white, but the soft gray of morning before fire is lit. Ilvin's child shadow looked into it and saw, beyond the threshold, a small body sleeping under a blanket of names. His own. His whole name. Ilvin Marroway. The child shadow stepped forward. Sarek slammed his bleeding hand onto the parchment. Hostage clause. The door froze. Every unopened door beneath the throne turned black. Sarek smiled through blood. Open Ilvin's door. And all remaining doors seal for 100 years. Nerelle's dragon shadow went silent. Ilvin looked back at her. And for the first time, the child asked a question. Will you still choose me? Ilvin's question held the first door open by a thread. Will you still choose me? Nerelle could not answer quickly. That was the cruelty of it. A quick yes would have sounded brave and doomed every shadow behind him. A quick no would have saved nothing except the shape of strategy, and strategy had never held a crying child through the dark. The key burned in her shoulder. The door used her flesh as hinge, her shadow as frame, and Soren's broken crown seal as the thin line keeping the crown from slamming it shut. Ilvin stood between the gray light and the blackened doors below the throne, small and trembling, with his whole name waiting on the other side. Ilvin Marroway. A name should have been a home. Sarek's smile widened when she hesitated. There is your witness, Dragon Court. She can free one soul and condemn the rest, or abandon one soul and pretend mercy is patience. Soren's hand tightened around the crown seal. Script bit into his burned palm. There must be another clause. There is always another clause, Sarek said. That is why law outlives pity. Nerelle closed her eyes. Her dragon shadow lowered its head over her, not hiding her, but listening with her. Beneath the throne, dozens of unopened doors waited in black silence. She could feel them now, not as voices, as withheld breath. She had chosen Ilvin because he was first, not because he was only. First door, first witness, first denied name. Nerelle opened her eyes. Ilvin, she said softly. When they locked you, did they lock you alone? The child shadow shook its head. Gold tears trembled on his chin. Who was beside you? Sarek's expression changed. Only slightly. Enough. Ilvin looked toward the dark doors behind him. Marae. One black door flickered. Nerelle's breath caught. Who stood beside Marae? Ilvin's smoky fingers curled. Sereth. Another door flashed. Soren looked at her then, understanding not yet formed but coming. Nerelle leaned closer despite the pain splitting through her shoulder. And who stood beside Sereth? Sarek snapped the parchment up. Irrelevant. Nerelle did not look at him. Ilvin whispered. Lysa. A third door flickered. Then more. Not opening. Answering. The doors had not been made as separate prisons. Sarek's had made them into a chain, and hidden the chain by pretending each soul was alone. Nerelle felt the loophole like a blade fitting her hand. You did not build one door for one child, she said. Sarek's jaw hardened. You built the first door as the witness path. The parchment hissed. Soren's eyes sharpened. If the first door opens as witness path, the others do not count as separate releases. They remain unopened, Nerelle said. But no longer unconnected. Sarek's face flushed with fury. A servant cannot interpret keeper architecture. I am not interpreting it. Nerelle looked down at Ilvin. He is remembering it. The key in her shoulder turned. Pain flared white. Ilvin cried out too. But this time he did not step away from the door. He pressed one smoky hand against Nerelle's burned arm and looked back into the dark. Marae, he called. The first black door behind him trembled. Sereth. Another. Lysa. Another. His voice grew steadier with each name, but his body grew thinner. Every name he called pulled light from him. Nerelle saw it and understood the new cost. Ilvin could mark the path, but if he called too many, he might fade before crossing his own door. No, she whispered. Ilvin looked at her with the terrible patience of children who had waited too long. Door, he said. Not mine. Door. Nerelle's throat tightened. Soren spoke low beside the seal. Use me. She shook her head. You are holding the crown back. I can hold more. You can barely stand. I can still pay. The words might have moved her once. Now she heard the trap inside them, not Sarek's trap, but Soren's own. He wanted pain to become usefulness because guilt had nowhere else to go. Nerelle looked at him. If you break, the crown takes the seal back. His face went still. So stay standing, she said. That is your cost. He bowed his head once and stayed. Nerelle turned to her dragon shadow. It lowered its vast face until its gray eyes filled her vision. She had thought it was her power, then her shield, then her inheritance. Now she understood it was also a door. You carry fire outside my body because inside it would kill me, she whispered. Can you carry names outside Ilven long enough for him to cross? The dragon shadow breathed against her shoulder. The answer came in pain before words. Yes. Cost. Nerelle swallowed. What cost? The dragon shadow opened its mouth, and a line of black gold fire touched the keyhole in her shoulder. Memory. Nerelle stiffened. Not years. Not blood. Memory. Syrinx began to laugh. Beautiful. The witness saves names by losing her own. Soren's head jerked up. No. Nerelle did not answer him. She felt the shape of the bargain forming. Her shadow could hold the chain of names long enough for Ilven to open the witness path. But it needed space. It would burn away memories to make room. Maybe small ones, maybe not. The ash kitchens. The birds she had saved. The first time she learned cold could hurt. The sound of her own name before tonight. Maybe even her mother's face. Newly found and already fragile. Ilven stared at her. Do not lose you. Nerelle almost broke then. Not at Syrinx. Not at Soren. At the child trying to protect the person bleeding to save him. She pressed one hand against the key in her shoulder. I choose the path, she said. Not one child. Not all at once. The path. Syrinx thrust the parchment forward. Hostage clause forbids. Hostage clause binds opening. Nerelle cut in. Not naming. The parchment cracked. Soren's mouth curved for half a heartbeat. Not into a smile, but into something like pride he had no right to show and knew better than to claim. Nerelle looked at Ilven. Call the first three. My shadow will hold them. Ilven nodded. Marae. Sereth. Lysa. The names struck Nerelle's dragon shadow. Memory burned. For one terrible second, Nerelle forgot the smell of the ash kitchens after rain. Then the memory was gone. She gasped. The dragon shadow roared, holding the names in its black gold throat. 3 dark doors behind Ilven softened from black to gray. Not open. No longer sealed for 100 years. Syrinx stared at them, horrified. Nerelle's knees weakened, but she did not fall. Again. Ilven's voice trembled. It hurts you. Yes. Why? Nerelle looked at the line of child shadows waiting beneath the throne. Because someone has to hurt for the right reason. Soren closed his eyes. That struck him. Good. Ilven turned back to the dark. Orin. Thale. Jessa. More names entered the dragon shadow. Another memory burned. Nerelle forgot the face of the old kitchen matron who had once tucked bread into her pocket without speaking. A sob escaped her before she could stop it. Soren took one step forward and nearly collapsed under the crown script. Stay, Nerelle ordered. He stayed. Syrinx's parchment suddenly folded inward, forming a blade of written law. If the witness makes a path, he said, voice shaking with rage, then the keeper may cut the bridge. He drove the parchment blade toward Nerelle's shadow. Soren threw the crown seal. It struck the blade in midair. The seal shattered. The crown authority holding the doors back vanished. Every black door beneath the throne began to close. Syrinx laughed. Then Ilven stepped fully into the gray light. Not through the door. Into it. His child shadow turned brighter than fire. I witness the witness, he said. The first door exploded open, and every stolen name in the dark spoke Nerelle's name back. Every stolen name in the dark spoke Nerelle's name back. Not gently, like a verdict. Nerelle Vaelth. The sound rose from beneath the throne, from behind the gray first door, from every black door Syrinx had tried to seal for 100 years. It struck the parchment blade before it could reform. It struck the broken crown seal scattered across the marble. It struck the key still buried in Nerelle's shoulder. Pain burst through her so violently she forgot how to breathe. Her dragon shadow opened its jaws and held the names inside black gold fire. Not swallowing them. Carrying them. The memory it had taken from her burned in its throat. Ash, kitchen rain, and a matron's hidden kindness turning to sparks, so the stolen children would not be nameless again. Ilvin stood in the gray light, brighter than before, no longer only shadow, not yet flesh. His small face had begun to form from the name that belonged to him. Ilvin Maraway. He looked at Syrinx. You locked the first door, the other names answered. Marae, Sarith, Lusa, Orin, Thale, Yessa. Doors softened from black to gray one by one. Syrinx stumbled back, clutching the torn parchment. No. Hostage clause remains valid. If one opens, all others witnessed, Nerelle said. Her voice was hoarse. Her body shook. The keyhole in her shoulder bled white light, but she stood. The dragon shadow lifted one wing behind her. The hall did not kneel. That mattered. Nerelle did not want knees. Knees were easy. Witness was harder. Syrinx's parchment writhed in his hands, searching for another wound to name. Then I invoke Keeper immunity. Gold script snapped around his body, forming a shell of law. No High Keeper may be judged by unregistered souls, treason lines, or crownless witnesses. Soren moved. Blood covered the side of his face. His crown was split beyond repair, authority bleeding from it in thin threads. Still, when he stepped off the cracked dais, the throne tried to pull him back. He tore free. The remaining royal banners went dark. The mountain beneath the hall roared. Nerelle felt the mountain dragon stir through the floor. Its waking presence pressed against every shadow in the room, ancient and enormous. Neither ally nor enemy yet. If Soren broke too much more, the kingdom itself might answer in fire. Syrinx smiled behind his shell. There it is. The price. Your king cannot leave the throne and keep the mountain sealed. Soren stopped beside Nerelle, not in front of her. Beside. What does the witness require? He asked. Nerelle looked at him. His face was pale with pain, but he did not look away. He was still the man who had ordered the test that burned her. Still the king whose throne had benefited from buried children. Still guilty. But guilt standing still was useless. Your crown cannot judge him, she said. Soren's jaw tightened once. Then he understood. He reached up and removed the broken crown. The throne screamed. Gold fire split the dais from base to back. The mountain dragon below struck one claw against stone, shaking dust from the vaulted ceiling. Soren held the crown out. Not to Nerelle, not to the nobles, but to the floor where Ilvin's name had been carved. I place crown judgment in witness custody until every denied name is read. Syrinx's shell cracked. No king has authority to... I am not using authority, Soren said. I am surrendering it. The crown fell from his hands. It struck the marble and broke into 3 pieces. The mountain dragon roared again, but this time Nerelle's dragon shadow answered. Black gold wings spread across the hall, not to challenge the mountain, but to show what Arvith had hidden. Fire outside the body. Flame that did not need a crown to exist. The mountain grew still. Listening, Nerelle turned to the children beneath the throne. I cannot open every door at once. The gray lights trembled. I cannot give back what they took without cost. Ilvin looked at her, solemn and bright. But I can make the law stop lying. Her dragon shadow lowered its head. Nerelle pressed her burned hand to the marble. Witness record, she said. Ilvin Maraway. Soul denied, not owned. Door opened by his own name. Keeper obstruction proven. The first door widened. Ilvin looked back once. Nerelle could not smile. If she did, she would break. So she gave him the truth. Go. Ilvin stepped through. Gray light wrapped around him. For a heartbeat, he was a boy again, small and whole, standing beneath morning before any furnace had been lit. Then he turned to face the remaining doors. I witnessed the path, he said. The gray light ran from his door to the next, not opening them all, connecting them. Syrinx's immunity shell shattered. The child bone key on the broken chain lifted from the floor and turned toward him. Syrinx backed away. I preserved the realm. Nerelle's voice was quiet. You preserved ownership. Soren took one step toward him, rage rising again. Nerelle caught his wrist. The touch burned them both. Soren stopped instantly. No, she said. Not your sword. Not your anger. He made law the weapon. Let witness strip it from him. Soren's hand slowly opened. He let the sword remain sheathed. Syrinx looked almost relieved. Then the names began reading him. Ilvin first. Marae next. Sereth. Lysa. Orin. Thale. Jessa. Each name struck the key. Each strike removed one line of rank from Syrinx's robes. High Keeper became Keeper. Keeper became Clerk. Clerk became Scribe. Scribe became witness to theft. His parchment burned away from the edges inward. Syrinx screamed then. Not because fire touched his skin, but because every law he had used to stand above others was naming him as evidence. The key drove itself into the marble at Nerelle's feet. A final sentence carved across the floor. Syrinx Morvain, Keeper of Locked Children. Stripped of law until every door is answered. Guards moved toward him. But Nerelle raised a hand. Bind him with blank parchment, she said. No names, no titles. Let him wait as they waited. The guards looked to Soren. Soren looked to Nerelle. Then the guards obeyed. Not because she was queen, because the floor still burned with witness record. And for the first time in generations, the court was afraid to lie in front of it. Nerelle swayed. Soren caught himself before reaching again. May I? The question was small. It cost him more than command. Nerelle should have said no. Part of her wanted to, but her knees were failing, and her dragon shadow was shaking from the names it still carried. Yes, she said. Only to help me stand. Soren's hand came under her elbow. Careful, steady, not possessive. Heat moved between them. Not romance. Not yet. Something more dangerous, because it had survived truth. I broke the crown, he said. You broke part of it. I will break the rest if witness requires it. Nerelle looked at the broken throne, the gray path beneath it, the waiting doors, the children not freed yet but no longer erased. Do not break what people still need, she said. Change what it serves. Soren bowed his head. Not to claim her. To accept judgment. Mareth's body line below the floor exhaled white fire. Her voice rose once more. Faint and proud. Witness recognized. Nerelle closed her eyes. The words did not crown her. They returned her. Her dragon shadow folded one wing around the broken hall, shielding the first gray path beneath the throne. The mountain dragon below gave one final rumble, then settled, not sleeping as before, but waiting awake. Outside the shattered furnace doors, dawn touched the palace stones. Nerelle stood beside a crownless king, with a child's name carved at her feet and 100 doors still waiting in the dark. She was not queen. She was not bride. She was not weapon. She was the witness the crown had failed to bury. And beneath the throne, the next stolen child knocked softly from the other side of the second door.